We all know the story. December 17th, 1903. Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Two brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, achieved the impossible. They conquer the skies with a rickety machine of wood, wire, and cloth, staying airborne for a mere 12 seconds. It's the dawn of aviation, a moment that changed the world forever. But what if that story is a lie? Not the part about the Wright brothers that happened, but the idea that it was the dawn of aviation. What if I told you that ancient, sacred texts, written thousands of years before Kitty Hawk, don't just describe flight. They describe entire fleets of sophisticated flying warships, powered by technology we still don't understand, that waged epic battles in the skies of ancient India? This isn't a metaphor. This isn't poetry. According to these texts, our ancestors weren't just dreaming of flight. They had already mastered it, and their machines, known as Vimanas, make a modern jet fighter look like a child's toy. The descriptions are found scattered throughout some of the oldest writings on Earth. The Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. These aren't just religious texts. They are epic histories, and they speak of flying machines with a casual, matter-of-fact detail that is deeply unsettling. They describe Vimanas of all shapes and sizes. Some were shaped like great birds, with metallic wings that soared on the wind. Others were sleek, multi-tiered structures that looked more like flying temples, adorned with gold and glowing with an inner light. One text in particular, the Vimanika Shastra, claims to be a direct technical manual. It describes how to build these craft. It says their bodies must be strong and durable, made of a light material. It speaks of different types of metals and alloys, some of which modern metallurgists have never heard of. But the real secret, the heart of the Vimana, was its power source. Forget jet fuel, forget propellers. The texts describe a technology that sounds like something straight out of science fiction: the Mercury vortex engine. Imagine a chamber deep inside the machine. In this chamber, a pool of liquid mercury is heated and spun, creating a powerful, electrified whirlwind. This swirling vortex of metal, according to the texts, generated a tremendous, thunderous power. It created a propulsive force that could lift the Vimana silently into the air, allow it to hover motionless for days, and propel it across continents at incredible speeds. It was a clean, powerful, and seemingly impossible engine. And these machines weren't just for travel, they were weapons of war. The skies of ancient India, as described in the epic Mahabharata, were a battlefield. The accounts of these aerial dogfights are terrifyingly specific. Pilots, known as Vidyadharas, would steer their craft through chaotic skies, unleashing arsenals that defy belief. They had weapons that could paralyze an entire enemy crew. They had devices that could create targeted, blinding flashes of light, far more intense than the sun. One weapon, called Indra's dart, was a projectile that, when fired, was guided by a circular reflector. It would seek out its target and release a destructive power that sounds eerily like a modern guided missile. The texts even describe defensive capabilities. Vimanas could become invisible at will. They could bend light around their hulls, disappearing from sight. They had listening devices that could supposedly pick up conversations happening inside enemy craft. They could even generate images of the enemy cockpit on a crystal screen. It's a detailed, technological account of warfare that simply should not exist in texts that are thousands of years old. Now, it's easy for a modern historian to wave this all away, to say it's just mythology, the creative ramblings of a pre-scientific people. And for a long time, that's exactly what everyone did. But then, we started finding things. physical evidence that doesn't quite fit the official story. Consider the words of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. As he witnessed the first ever nuclear detonation at the Trinity Test in 1945, a line from an ancient Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, came to his mind. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Why that line? Perhaps because he had read the descriptions of another, far older weapon in the Indian epics. A weapon called the Brahmastra. The texts describe it as a single projectile, charged with all the power of the universe. When it was unleashed, it created an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns. It was a weapon so terrible it could wipe out entire armies, boil the rivers, and leave the land barren for generations. The descriptions of its aftermath, of warriors' bodies being burned so badly they were unrecognizable, of their hair and nails falling out, are hauntingly similar to the effects of radiation poisoning. Could the Brahmastra have been a real, ancient nuclear weapon? It sounds insane. Until you travel to a place called Mohenjo-Daro in modern-day Pakistan. It was one of the largest cities of the ancient Indus Valley civilization, abandoned over 3,000 to 700 years ago. When archaeologists unearthed it, they found something strange. The skeletons of its inhabitants were found scattered in the streets, not in their homes. They weren't buried. They were just lying there, as if some sudden, horrific event had overtaken them in an instant. Even stranger, some of these skeletons showed radiation levels up to 50 times higher than normal background radiation. And in one specific area of the city, archaeologists found vitrified rock. That's rock that has been melted and fused into glass. To do that, you need to expose it to a blast of heat exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius, the kind of heat you typically only find at the epicenter of a nuclear explosion. The official explanation is a massive fire or a lightning strike, but the evidence doesn't quite add up. The vitrification is localized, as if from a single intense blast. Could this be the site where a Brahmastra was used? A silent, radioactive testament to a forgotten war? The clues don't stop there. Proponents of this theory, often called the ancient astronaut theory, point to countless other pieces of evidence. Temple carvings across India that seem to depict figures in what look uncannily like modern spacesuits, complete with helmets and breathing apparatus. Detailed reliefs showing gods riding on what are clearly not animals, but complex, mechanical flying machines. Is it possible that the gods described in these ancient stories were not divine beings, but technological ones? Extraterrestrial visitors who brought their advanced craft and devastating weapons to our planet, leaving behind a legacy that was recorded as myth? Did they give this technology to our ancestors, who then used it to wage their own terrible wars? It's a wild theory, but it provides a framework that connects these disparate, bizarre clues. It explains the detailed technical descriptions of the Vimanas. It explains the stories of aerial warfare, and it provides a terrifying potential explanation for the radioactive ruins of Mohenjo-Daro. Of course, the mainstream academic world rejects this entirely. They argue that the Vimanika Shastra, the most detailed text, was actually channeled in the early 20th century, not an ancient document. They say the descriptions are imaginative, not technical, and that any attempt to build a Vimana based on them has failed. They insist that the stories are poetry, the gods are gods, and the vitrified rocks are the result of ancient pottery kilns. And maybe they're right. Maybe it's all just a coincidence, a collection of fantastic stories, strange archaeological finds, and wishful thinking. But the questions linger. How did ancient poets, with no concept of aerodynamics or modern warfare, write with such stunning technical detail about flying machines and guided weapons? How do you explain the sudden, violent end of Mohenjo-Daro and the radiation that still clings to its bones? And why did the man who invented the most destructive weapon in human history immediately think of a story written thousands of years before him? We are left with two possibilities. Either the ancient people of India were the most gifted science fiction writers in human history, predicting the future of technology with impossible accuracy, or the stories are not fiction, they are history. A forgotten chapter of our past, when flying warships filled the skies, and when humanity wielded a power so great, it nearly erased itself from existence. A history that has been dismissed as myth, waiting silently in the pages of ancient books to be rediscovered.